Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be going over drag and drop with SwiftUI, and we'll be going over everything from the most basic use case all the way to a really advanced use case. Now if you're ready to get started learning, then stay tuned. Let's learn together. Alright, so here we are in our brand new Xcode project, and the first thing we want to go ahead and do is we want to rearrange what we've got here. Now as you can see, we've got an image and a text. We don't need this image, so we're going to get rid of it. And we are going to go ahead and start off by making this text draggable. Now, as you can see here, this takes a payload that is any kind of transferable. So string is one of those things that automatically conforms to transferable. And so what we can do is we can add whatever string we want to here. And then just by adding this draggable modifier to a piece of text is all we need to make something draggable. Now, draggable doesn't really do any good unless you've got somewhere for that draggable content to go. So let's go ahead and let's just make a rectangle here. And we will set its frame with a width of 100 and a height of also 100. And let's give it a foreground style of blue. Cool. And let's put a little bit more padding between our box and our text. So we'll add padding to the bottom, and let's just say padding of 50, just to space them out a little bit. Nice. Now in order to be able to actually drop something onto our rectangle, we just add a modifier called drop destination. And we will use this implementation here. And now as you can see here, it says generic parameter t could not be inferred. So whenever we do that, we can simply add a for and a string dot self. And that says that whenever we receive anything that is of type string, then that is something we want to go ahead and accept into our drop destination. And as you can see, we can receive multiple items in this drop destination here. So let's go ahead and let's just say for each item in our items array, we want to print that we dropped our each item on the box. Cool. And with just that little bit of code, that's actually all we need in order to make our box be able to receive a string. So let's go ahead and let's run our project on the simulator. This doesn't work as great in the preview as a lot of other things do. So we'll just go ahead and bring up our simulator. Nice, and as we can see, it's already running. So in order to be able to drag something, you long press on the thing that you're trying to drag, and then you can move it over our box, and as you can see, we can drop it here because we've got a little plus button that appeared. And so when we drop it, we can see down here in our console that we dropped the dragon on the box. Very cool. And with just that little bit of code, we've been able to actually implement drag and drop in its most basic form. Now, this is really cool and this is really useful. But there are some more advanced topics, such as making custom objects conform to transferable. And if that's something that you're interested in, leave a comment down below. So we're going to build a little bit more advanced UI, and we're going to deal with dragging and dropping things across a scrolling list, which is really, really cool. So let's go ahead and let's go over to our project navigator, and let's create a new Swift file. And in our new Swift file, we will call this our advanced drag and drop example. Cool. All right, and let's go ahead and stop our simulator so that we can see our preview here. Nice. All right, so let's go ahead and let's set up some basic data. So I would like for our list to have sections, and our sections, let's just say for now, are going to be A, B, C, D, and E. Cool. And let's also have an array of emojis. So let's go ahead and get some emojis here. And so we will do, let's do a dragon for our first one. Let's do a, let's say fire for the second one. And then we will say that we want a ghost for the third one. And we'll do a rocket. And then we'll do one more just to get a 5 on there. And let's say a robot. Cool. Alright, so now we've got our sections and now we've got our emoji set up. So let's go ahead and display a list of items that are grouped. So we'll go ahead and we'll get rid of our text view here. And we will say that we have a list. And our list will display our sections. And the ID will be our individual piece of text itself. Cool. And now, as you can see here, it's already populated that we want a section in. So for each section, we want to create a new section, and our header text, or our header content, I should say, will be a text, and the text will be section, and then we'll pass it our section here. And inside each section, we want to do a for each. And let's say that we want to go from 0 up to 10. And we want this to be, yes, that's right. We want to pass our item in so that we can access our item in here. In fact, let's give it a row number. And so we'll display a text with a row and our row number here. Cool. Now, as you can see over here in our preview window, we've got a scrolling list, and it looks actually pretty good. It's got all of our content sectioned out like we would expect. Nice. So that's the basic list. Now, the next piece of this is I actually want to do a horizontally scrolling list over the bottom of this one. So let's go ahead and let's build that out next. So in order to do that, we will put our list in a Z stack. Oops, Z stack. There we are. And let's wrap that there. Nice. All right. At the base level of our Z stack, we've got our list. And above that, we want to do a scroll view. And we want our axis to be horizontal. And inside our horizontal scroll view, let's do a lazy H grid. Cool. And that takes rows. And we will say that each row will be a grid item that is flexible. Cool. And we need to capitalize the V in our scroll view there. Cool. All right. And so for our code here, let's say that we want a for each. And we want to for each over our list of emojis. And so for each emoji in, we will display a text with the emoji. And let's give that text some padding. And then we will say that there is a background. And our background will be a color green, for example. And then we will clip that background to a circle. Nice. And let's, yes, we need to say that each of these is unique in and of itself. So let's go ahead and mention that. Cool. All right. And now this is a good start. Let's go ahead and make these emojis just a little bit larger. So we will say that this is a large title on each of these emojis. And let's give them a little bit more spacing. So we'll do a spacing of 30, for example. Cool. And then we don't want our emoji list to be in the center of the screen, we want it to be along the bottom. So let's change the alignment on our Z stack to dot bottom. And now it looks like our view here with our scroll view is growing to fill the width of the content, or the height of the content. So let's go ahead and let's just put a height limit on there. So we will say that there's a height limit of 100. Nice. So now we have a list that can scroll vertically, and we have a list at the bottom that can scroll horizontally. Very cool. All right, so now that we've got the basic implementation of what we want our view to look like out of the way, let's go ahead and make it so that we can drop each of our emojis on these specific rows. So again, we do that in a very similar way. So we can say that these emojis are draggable, and the payload is going to be our emoji here. Nice. And then we can say that this is a drop destination on our list, and so we will say that we want to listen for a string dot self. And now in here we will say for each item, because again we get an array of items here in our item, that we want to print out that we dropped the specific item, each item here. And since we actually know that these are going to be emojis, let's go ahead and let's mention that. So let's change this to emojis here. Emojis here. So in order for this to make a little bit more sense, let's go ahead and right click, and we'll also rename each item. And we'll say this is our emoji in. So now we'll know which particular emoji we actually were able to drop here. And just so that we know exactly where we dropped it, let's go ahead and say that we dropped this emoji on, actually let's say in section, and then we'll display our section name here. So we'll say section, and at row, and then we'll add our row number there. All right, cool. So now before we give this a run, let's go ahead and go back into our main app, and we will say that we are done checking out our basic content view, and let's look at our advanced drag and drop example. Cool. So now let's jump back over into our advanced example, and let's run our code, and let's see what this looks like on our simulator here. Cool. So now let's take our fire emoji, for example, and let's drop it on section A, row 8. Nice. And as you can see here, we dropped the fire emoji on section A at row 8. Cool. Now this also gives us the ability to do some interesting things. For example, if we're farther down in our list and we took our ghost emoji, we can actually use this list to scroll up and down and drop it on something else. So if we said section B, row 0, now we can see down here in our list we've got dropped our ghost emoji in section B at row 0. Very cool. But currently there's a little bit of an issue. For example, if we tried to take our rocket emoji, we can see that when we move up we can scroll up, but when we try to take it down to the bottom of the list, our scroll view is getting in the way with our horizontal grid, and it's not letting our list scroll down. So let's go ahead and fix that next. So we will jump back over into our project, and we will stop our build. Now again, the reason that that's happening is because our scroll view is overlaid over the top of our list, and so whenever we drag our content back down to where our scroll view is, it says, you don't need to scroll on your list because you're over your horizontally scrolling view. So in order to fix that, let's make this just a little bit more advanced. So we will add a state variable here, and our state variable will be called isDragging, and we will set it to false by default. So this will let us know if we are dragging any of our items from our scroll view. So let's go ahead, and one way to get this scroll view out of the way is we could set our opacity. So we could check if we are dragging, and if we are dragging, then we want our opacity on our scroll view to be 0. And if we are not dragging, then we want it to be 1. Now, the downside to using this really awesome draggable modifier is that it doesn't give you a closure so that you can run other code. In order to get a closure to be able to run other code, we actually need to change this draggable modifier a little bit, and it needs to be just a onDrag modifier here. So we will take our onDrag, and then we will go ahead and put our code in here. So when we start dragging, we're going to go ahead and update our state. But as you can see here, when we option click on what this thing takes a function that returns some sort of NS item provider, and the onDrag returns some view as a result. So let's go ahead and we will say with animation, we want our is dragging variable here to be set to true. And now that we've done that, we can return an NS item provider, and we'll pass it an object, and the object that we want to send is we want to send our emoji. Now, as you can see here, it doesn't know that this is expected to be a string, so we can help our code and say that this is as an NS string. Cool, and with that we've been able to satisfy that constraint of returning our NS item provider. So now let's go ahead and give our code another run. Cool, okay, let's try the dragon again. So now if we see the dragon, we are dragging it and our scroll view went away. And as you can see, now we can drag down, we can scroll up, and let's drop it, let's go all the way to the bottom, and section E, row 9. Cool, and now we can see here in our print statement that we dropped the dragon on section E at row 9. Very cool. Now there is, again, another downside to this. Once we've dropped our dragon or dropped our emoji, it's not actually giving us our row back because we're never doing anything to set this back to false, and so it's hiding that scroll view forever. So let's go ahead and we can go back into our code, and up here when we're dealing with our drop destination, we can say that we want another with animation body here, and in our with animation we can set our is dragging back to true. Cool. And now, whenever we're done dragging, we should get our list of emojis back. So let's go ahead and run that in the simulator. Nice. All right, let's try dragging the robot. We haven't done that for a while. So now we've got our list moved out of the way. We've scrolled down, section C, row 0. And our list didn't come back because, silly me, this is supposed to be false. We are no longer dragging this, so again, let's give that another run. Cool, and let's drag our robot, and we'll drag him to a different spot now. How about section D, row 0? Cool, section D, row 0. As you can see, that got printed out in our console, and our scroll view came back. Very cool. Now, while our implementation continues to get better, there's a little bit of a downside. For example, if we take our rocket and we start dragging our rocket, and then we actually don't want to drag it, we decide, I changed my mind, I'm just going to drop it somewhere where it's not a list. As you can see, it went back, but because we didn't have a great way to bring our horizontally scrolling list items back, our emoji list is still unable to be seen by the user. So let's go ahead and let's fix that next. So let's jump back into our code, and let's say that there is a view here, and we only want this view to show up if we are dragging our content. And this view will be a VStack, and in our VStack we want to take an image. We want to display an image with a system name of xmark. and let's give it a text of cancel. All right, and then let's again make this a font with a large title, and then we'll give it some padding, and we will change the background to color.red, and let's change the foreground style to white. Nice. And let's also give this a clip shape of dot circle here. Oh, it picked capsule. Let's do circle. Cool. All right. Now there is a little bit of a downside to running this right now the way it is set up, because there is not a great way of knowing whether or not we've actually dropped anything on this particular view itself, because we want all of the drop listening to happen right here inside of our text row. And our text row currently doesn't know anything about the location or the position of our VStack. So let's go ahead and let's modify this code just a little bit. And let's say that on our background, we want to wrap our color in a geometry reader here. Cool. And this will take a proxy. So let's move our color.red into there. Nice. Okay. And so now we can say when this view appears, we want to run some code. And the code that we want to run is to get the frame of our view. So we will say that we want the frame to be the proxy.frame in the global coordinate space. Now this gets the frame, but we have no way to access this in our drop destination up here. So let's go ahead and let's add one more state variable. And so we'll add our state variable here, and this will be called our cancel frame, and it will be a CGRect. Cool. And so now whenever we've got our frame here of our red color, we can say that our cancel frame is equal to this frame here in our global coordinate space. But now, how do we actually check that in a different view? Well, in order to do that, we can come back up to our drop destination here, and we can say, so we can check if we have a cancel frame. So if we do in fact have a cancel frame, and then the next thing that we want to check is if our cancel frame contains a particular point. And we can get the exact drop point where our item was let go by getting the location from the session. Cool. So again, just to make sure this is very clear as to what we're doing here, we are making sure that we do have a cancel frame and that it's not nil. And if it's not nil, we're checking to see if our location falls within the frame of the cancel button. So this location is just exactly where we let go. So if we let go right above the 3 here, then this session location would be the X and Y coordinates of our screen on that 3. So if we have a cancel frame, and if our drop location is inside that cancel frame, then we want to say that we canceled our drop. Cool. And otherwise, we want to say that we dropped our emoji on a particular section. Nice. And also, just to help clean things up, whenever we're done with this code, then we could also go ahead and we could set our cancel frame back to nil. Nice. So let's go ahead and let's give this a run here. Cool. All right. Again, let's take our dragon and let's move it. Cool. And now that we're dragging, we can see we've got our large cancel button. And if we drop something on our cancel button, even if it's above a list row, we can see that we canceled the drop in our console. Cool. And if we take another emoji and we actually drop it somewhere that's not our list button, we should see section C, row 9. Cool. So we dropped our fire emoji at section C, row 9. Very cool. So with that little bit of code, we've been able to provide the user with a good user experience for being able to drag and drop things, even in a complex list with 2 different scrolling directions, and still provide the user with something that looks and works really, really well. And with that, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you leave a comment, just be nice about it. That's all I ask. Thanks. Have a great day.